Hey there friends, David Paulides, Missing Project. That is our executive producer, Huck L. Berry. Hey Huck, how you doing? Yeah, you good girl. Yeah, you good girl. Yeah, a good girl. She's a good girl, huh? He's a good girl. Oh, thank you. Thank you. He's a good girl. He is a good girl. Come on, it's gotta stay here. You gotta supervise. You gotta supervise. You gotta supervise. You're a stinker. Oh yeah, you're a stinker. I know. Oh yeah, I know. I know. She'll hang out with us for a while and hopefully won't cause a ruckus. And of course, we've got our American Sasquatch movie premiere November 28th in Tacoma, Washington. Hopefully somebody will be there. Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of people there. And it's going to debut December 1st, probably on Amazon. You'll be able to see it. And of course, I'll be selling DVDs, etc. at our online store, missing411.com. And if you want to get tickets, go to missing411.com, the online store. Yes. People have been asking me, how's Missing 411 National Parks movie coming? Brilliantly. On track, doing well. Thanks for asking. And totally different topics. Sasquatch, Missing 411, unrelated, different, altogether. Hey, what are you doing over there, Huck? Looking for scraps? She goes, hey, Dad's busy. She's super smart. She goes, hey, he's over here busy with the film, so I can go mess around where I normally don't, right? Yeah, I know. I know you. Talk about kindness for a second. Yeah, this was a big one. A lot of you guys didn't know this. In fact, nobody knew this. I didn't say anything. I got called about a month ago by a widely known cable TV show that millions of you watch. I've been on this show before. And no, I've never been on the Skinwalker Ranch show, so it's not Skinwalker Ranch, but it was another one. And they said, hey Dave, we want you to come down to LA and film the show with us, blah, blah, blah. Of course, I do it. So they put me on this flight, and I was tired and I wanted to sleep, so I used some miles to upgrade to first class. Don't usually do that, but I did. And I get on, and I'm in row 2. And I'm sitting by the window. And this lady, a little older than me, is sitting next to me. And they're boarding the flight. In front of me, on the aisle seat in front of me, and across the aisle on the other aisle seat, there's a man and a boy, 7, 8 years old. This man asked the person in front of me in row 1 if he would exchange and take the aisle seat on the other end so he and his son can sit together. The guy goes, no, I'm not doing that. Like a complete jerk. So he asks the person on the other end, sitting next to the window, ma'am, would you kindly switch with my son so he and I could sit together? I'm not doing that. It pissed me off. Because I had kids that were young once too. And I know that it's anxiety to the kids not to be able to sit next to the parents, especially at that age. So I've got this older lady sitting next to me. And I go, ma'am, would you mind getting up and taking an aisle seat, and I'll get up and take an aisle seat so that man and his son can sit in our seats? I swear to you, she looked at me, she goes, oh, I'm so glad you asked me that, sir. Let's do that for him right now. We got up. I told him, I said, yeah, you take our seats, that's not a problem. And the crappiest seat one of the crappiest seats in first class is the aisle seat right next to where everyone walks in, right next to the bathroom. I don't care. The jerk sitting next to me now I sit down and he heard us. He said, oh, I said, hey, I'm glad to switch with you even if those other people don't. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather make you guys and your son comfortable. Oh, sir, you're so happy. I sit down. This guy next to me goes, I guess I should have done that. I didn't say anything to him. But as I've stated to you before, certain times in life there's this crossroads. And I swear to you, it's like somebody from up above is testing us. Here's an opportunity for you, Dave, to be a really good person without anyone asking you. And nobody asked us. Nobody asked this woman and I. And the man next to me had that opportunity. Or the man, sitting next to me then in the window seat had that opportunity to be a good person to this man and his son. He didn't do it. Neither did the woman on the other end. She didn't do it. Now I knew, when I sat down in that seat, I said, I'll bet you anything. That's not a villager. That's not a friend of ours from our website. No way. We'd do it. Honestly, it did not matter to me. I stretched my legs out. It wasn't as comfortable as leaning against the window. Who cares? You know what? That boy had a much better time on that flight being with his dad. We got up, after we got into Kalispell, we got up. It was late. It was about 11:15 at night. And the man again said, hey, that was really nice of you too. Thank you. Hey, anytime. Glad to help you guys. I honestly do believe that we are tested at times. And somebody's just saying if we have compassion, if we're willing to do something for someone at a time of need. Glad to do it. Glad to do it. All right. The case we're talking about today is a piggyback to the case we talked to you about earlier up in Washington. That was the Monte Cristo case. I'll get into that later. But this case involved two young men named Richard Franklin and Thomas Westphal. Both were 18 years old, and both went to the University of Washington. Franklin was an engineering major, and Westphal was a psychology major. Both were 18. Both were friends and knew each other when they were going to school in Seattle. So they were freshmen, and the date was October 12th, 1947. So they'd been in school at about a month. They had a weekend free. So they talked about it, and they said, hey, let's go up to Mount Index and climb it. They both agreed to do it. They came home on that Friday night. And they packed a sleeping bag, food, backpacks. And the Franklins allowed Richard to take the family car for 2 days. And they did. Well, the guys got to a turnout up near Mount Index, parked the family car, got out their backpack, and they started walking in on the trail. Now, they were supposed to be back in just 2 days. On October 13th, the guys didn't return, and the parents knew exactly where they were at. So the two dads got together, and they drove the Westphal's car up to the area adjacent to Mount Index, and there was the Franklin car sitting on the side of the road. It was late. They knew 100% for certain something big was wrong. Why? Because the two boys were super responsible, and they said they would have been home Sunday afternoon at the latest. Well, the parents immediately contacted the U.S. Forest Service, and early that next morning on October 14th, Assistant Regional Ranger Norm McCaslin met the parents at that trailhead And they brought some other members of the Skyhomish Ranger Station with them to the area, and they hiked into the base of Mount Index. Look up Mount Index right now. It's quite an imposing series of peaks. Not for the faint of heart at all. And I want to read to you what it says. Mount Index is a Cascade Range classic. The views of the mountain from Highway 2 are awesome and seen by many every year. There are 3 peaks to the legendary summit ridge, commonly known as North, Middle, and Main. Even though the approach is fairly close to civilization, not too many folks climb the mountain in any given season. The easiest route to the main peak is somewhat non-technical and is approached from the west, and a moderate scree snow climb doable in a day for a determined and fit hiker. However, the standard route uses the east and southeast sides. The middle and north peaks are only accessible via technical climbs, the easiest being a grade 3 5.7 on a vertical dirt, somewhat rotten rock, and thick brush in the areas of the north face and north peak. Camping allowed near but not on the shores of Lake Serene, which is at 2,200 feet and 3.6 miles from the trailhead, near the approach to the North Ridge. Total elevation at the main peak is 5,991. Prominence is 2,991. Now, when I tell you to look at it, this is what you would see. Tell me that that is not imposing. Now, when I was young, myself and a friend named Paul Nelson, great man, would go and climb peaks. We knew our limitations. No, and we used carabiners, ropes. We knew all the knots. We did all those things. I still have my rope. The point being is we knew our limitations. I would not have done that. Sometimes you need to know what you don't know. So these guys thought that they could do this, and together they thought it'd be a good thing to do. It was fun, and they had a weekend free, so off they went. Now, both the fathers were waiting when the Rangers arrived. Lake Serene sits somewhat near the base of the mountain, and there was a heavy layer of fog when the fathers and the Rangers made it in. 1 mile from the car, there was an old abandoned mine. And just inside, not very far, just inside that mine area, the sleeping bags and the backpacks for the boys were found there. Seems like a reasonable thing to do. Keep them out of the weather. They'd be there when they came back. You don't want to climb a mountain like that with your backpack on. No way. You're going to do that with just a rope, if you had it, some carabiners, some pitons maybe. No way you're going to take a backpack with you. Maybe stuff your pockets with some bars. Well, the Rangers had brought 12 men, and they started scouring the area around the base of Mount Index. The next day, the 15th, it was a howling wind and rain that turned back an experienced climbing team that had tried to reach the summit of Mount Index. They had another team that was arriving, and they were climbing and searching the area around Lake Serene. The Forest Service stated that it was their belief that the boys may be lost in the woods and not on the mountain. That threw kind of a wrench into things. Now, with that theory, they had to send people into the woods, and not everybody was going to be on the mountain. But the parents said that the boys told them they were going to climb Mount Index. So I'm not sure why the Forest Service said that, Hard to say. October 16th. Part of the search and rescue team went towards the Tolt River area southwest of Mount Index. And on this day, the Forest Service said that part of their climbing team reached 4,000 feet up towards the 5,900-foot summit. And they found some orange peels on the side of the mountain that were very fresh, along with an axe and some tools. They said it had to be the boys. There was nobody else in that area. And the search teams couldn't get past that point because of bad weather. Other teams were still covering the woods and the base of the mountain. An air rescue team from McCord Air Force Base had been dispatched, and through the gaps in the clouds at specific times, they never saw anything. They also had 20 rangers that were headed by Chief Ranger R.L. Cooper that worked up and down the slopes of, and you can see, they were working up and down the slopes of the mountains looking for the guys. Now, you start up the slopes from the bottom of the slope, right? So they were covering the base at one point and then going up the slopes with the other. Rescuers established a base camp at Bridal Veil Falls where the fathers were staying with the rangers. And late in the day, rangers got within 500 feet of the summit and were turned back by strong winds and rain. There were 5 different search and rescue teams working the mountain on that day. They had that thing covered. They had every which way but Sunday on that mountain covered. And because they believed they were on that mountain now, they pulled everybody out of the woods, and it was a mass of people around Mount Index. So, if you're the rangers, you have to determine a strategy to go at. And what they were thinking at this point is they believed that the boys had to have been on that summit somewhere and died probably from hypothermia. That was their only guess. On the 17th, searchers moved deeper into the woods, going towards, they have to go through the woods and around the backside to get up to the index. The parents of the missing boys made a public plea for more searchers. Cars were also needed to transport the searchers from the public highway into the woods towards where the base camp was located. Forest Service also got a helicopter that was briefly used, and then it was grounded by high winds and blowing clouds. You could hear how many times I've stated that searchers were thwarted in their attempts by weather. Planes and helicopters were put on the ground because of weather. Weather was a big issue here. A public appeal was made by the Forest Service and the public that was there for all members of the Everett Climbing Club to come to the mountain and search. Everett had a big mountaineering club. Everett was also the home of the man that was missing on Monte Cristo. So here was the other search that was going on simultaneously. Everett's right here. Mount Index is right here where the search was going on that we're talking about. This is Mount Baker. Do a little search of Mount Baker and UFOs. Just do it. See what you find out. When I'm done, write it in your notes. And when I'm done with this video, you go look that up, okay? Please. Hey, Hawk, what's up? So we're still on October 17th. Public plea is also made for more equipment from the public. They needed tents and sleeping bags so that the searchers that were coming up could spend the night instead of having to turn around and drive all the way home every night, so they could just stay there. Well, the Army heard about all this that was going on and the search and the effort. And the general at Fort Lewis, General Kendall, he was a commanding officer. He called up the Forest Service and he told them, he said, I'll send soldiers to help you search. They're trained, they're fit, willing to help. The Forest Service told him that they thought that they'd be of little help. And General Kendall was a little confused because just earlier in the day, they made a request for more searchers. Now he offers up the soldiers and the Forest Service says no. What's going on? I read that back and forth 3 times. I said, this doesn't make any sense. You are always going to take troops because they're trained, they have equipment, and they have food rations to take care of themselves. October 18th. Searchers had been on site they'd been on site since October 12th. 5 full days. And they were described as weary and tired. And when searchers are tired, it's when people get hurt and areas aren't covered as thoroughly as if you weren't. This is the next day. General Kendall again hears that they're weary and tired. He again calls the Forest Service and offers his units to assist. He said that he had 4 extremely highly experienced mountaineers that he could loan to them. He stated that these men were under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Sheeler and were eager and able to assist and apply their advanced skills at mountaineering under a technical degree. Well, this is exactly what they needed. If they wanted more people on the side of Mount Index, these were the guys. It wasn't that the Forest Service said no. They completely ignored him. What? It was in the paper. Late on the 18th, the snow line descended to 1,500 feet, and it got significantly cooler. October 20th, there was a slide, a dirt and tree slide on one of the roads going into the search and rescue headquarters. And it blocked all access in and out. The Forest Service had to bring a dozer in to clear it. By the end of the day, it was cleared. But it showed that there was a lot of complications going on. October 21st and 22nd, searchers continued to focus on the areas that were accessible, and the weather started to give more accessibility to certain areas. They failed to locate any additional evidence. October 23rd, the Forest Service gave a press release, stated that all of the searchers believed that all hope of finding the boys alive was over. Based on the amount of time, no food, no water, etc. Well, I tend to believe they were probably true. October 26th, 3 days later, the weather near the summit of Mount Index finally cleared. 3 expert climbers from Seattle that were on standby came to the search and rescue headquarters immediately and started climbing. Many of the searchers believed the boys would be found dead on the summit from hypothermia. And that was the push and the urge to get somebody up there. The 3 men eventually reached the summit, searched it, found nothing. In fact, they said that they didn't think the boys were ever even there. How could they say that? Well, each major summit, almost anywhere you go, has something like a cache box, like a ammo can box, military ammo can box that has seals on both sides. And the cache box that's sealed inside has like a memo book and a couple pens. And what it is, it's kind of cool because I've done it before, is once you summit, you get out the logbook, you write your name, your date, the time you summited, and a sentence or two. It's beautiful, thanks, thank God I'm here, whatever you want to write. Well, the climbers found the register, read the logbook, and found the boys never signed it. They never made it to the summit. Now, some would say, well, maybe they didn't find it. No, these are always in a place you will find it. And I'm sure the guys knew it was there. It was an enormous letdown on searchers because they had a few places left to go. They were depressed. Where are these guys? Now, think about it. If they're not on the summit, they're not on the side of the mountain that they've been searching for 7-8 days. Well, let's see, it was the 26th, so they've been searching for 13 days at that point. Where could they be? Now, while all of this is happening, just 17 miles away is that major search going on for a hunter, deer hunter. Let me explain. It is super highly unusual to have two major searches going on 17 miles apart. I mean, super unusual. The Monte Cristo case dealt with a missing deer hunter, Henry Wright, 39 years old, missing October 18th, 1947. So Wright disappeared 6 days after Richard and Thomas disappeared. Wright was hunting with two friends, got separated, super bad weather came in, and he disappeared. And I've got the video to that, and I'll link it to this. So you think about the unusual natures of both of these. Yeah, point of separation over here with the deer hunter. He gets separated from his friends. Over here you have two boys who disappear. Let me explain something. It is also super, super unusual to have two people disappear at the same time. It's realistically hardly ever heard of. Very, very rarely. Well, October 30th, the U.S. Forest Service makes a determination that they're going to stop all search and rescue. Now, can you imagine the Franklins and the Westphals going home without their sons? I mean, I think about this stuff. I don't know why I do, but I think about it. Now, fast forward a little more than 2 years. November 6th, 1949. Completely unrelated to the search and rescue, 3 University of Washington advanced climbers that knew about the Westphal Franklin disappearance went up to Mount Index and they decided to search it. And they said that as they were coming down one side of Mount Index, they saw something unusual at the bottom of the mountain. They get down and they see partial skeletal remains of a man. Well, they know what it is. So these 3 climbers get off the mountain, contact the Snohomish County Sheriff along with the U.S. Forest Service and tell them about the remains. The next day on the 7th, sheriff's deputies go up find the scene, collect the remains. Only partial remains were found. Only one skeletal cranial area of one body was found. And the next day, they give this cranial remains to a dentist called Dr. Harry Foster. And he looks at the x-rays from Franklin and Westphal's dental work, and he identifies one of the cranial remains as belonging to Thomas Westphal. Sheriff's deputies stated that they searched that area for almost an entire day, going out further and further and looking. And they found a belt buckle nearby the remains that had the letter F on it. And that was identified as belonging to Richard Franklin. So, cranial remains, Westphal, belt remains, Franklin. Now, back in 1947, they didn't have any DNA work that they could do. Science wasn't that advanced. Skeletal remains were not even close to complete. They never sent the remains to a forensic anthropologist, which is what they do today, to analyze to see if there were any broken bones, etc., that may have attributed to the death. As an example, there's a femur bone in your body, in your lower leg. Let's say if that bone was broken, well, maybe you fell from high up and you broke that bone and you died there from a fall. But since they only had part of a cranial here and no skeletons, they didn't know what might have happened. But of course, the Forest Service chimes in on the incident. I gotta giggle when I mean, it's not a funny thing, but I've gotta giggle when I read this stuff. They said that the boys were climbing the mountain and they got stuck on a cliff, froze to death on the cliff, and then at some later time, for unknown reasons, their bodies dropped to the ground. You hear what I said? If you're a follower of my work, this should be resonating with you as Missing 411, the UFO Connection. Critique. The Forest Service analysis was 100% guesswork. You cannot tell if somebody died from hypothermia from a skeleton. No, you can't, can you? I know. See, she backed me up. Why didn't the searchers find the guys when they were there for 2 weeks searching? They searched up and down the mountain on all the sides. They searched on the bottom on every side. Never found. So why didn't they find them on the ledge, or why didn't they find them on the ground? Because remember, they found orange peels on the side of the mountain? They never, ever mentioned if clothing was found or if clothing wasn't found. They never explained where on the mountain the bodies were found. Why? The description of the skeletal remains, the location of the skeletal remains, the description of the bones that were found was the most vague description I've ever read on any recovery anywhere I've ever seen. I don't get it. Now, how did 3 University of Washington climbers happened to find what 100 men for 2 weeks climbing all over the mountain and all over the bottom could not. Think about it. Why didn't the U.S. Forest Service allow the military climbers to come in and search? Were 2 missing person cases happening simultaneously pure coincidence? Think about that. Think about all the oddities I've just told you about. Did the Forest Service not want the soldiers coming in because they couldn't control the searchers? No, you just search here. Hey, but we're professional mountaineers. We want to go here. No, you come here. No, we want to search here. They know that would happen. They didn't want that. It's almost like they didn't want them going into certain areas. That was my guess. Because tell me why you wouldn't want more professional mountaineers. Yeah, I'm a little peeved about this. I'm a little upset because I don't think we know everything that happened on that mountain. But you will never be able to convince me that all those searchers and all those mountaineers on that mountain missed those boys. I don't believe it. Like I've stated before, searchers are not that clumsy. 1 or 2 maybe. But you put 100 on that mountain, everyone's bound to find something. And for them not to find those boys in an area that should have been found, that dog don't hunt. I'm sorry. So friends, thank you for being here. You are greatly appreciated. I think Huck just said, hey Dad, make sure you tell him that you care about him and you love him and you want him and you appreciate him being here. I will, Huck. And you are loved, you are appreciated, okay? The case I told you about today, you'll never hear about it anywhere. Nor about the case of Mr. Wright, the guy who disappeared and was never found. Another case you'll never find. So, hang in here with me. I'll post every other day. It's a guarantee. Make sure you're subscribed. Please, make sure you're subscribed. And remember, commenting is appreciated. If you can't make a comment, it's because I'm out of town somewhere. Be patient, I'll be back. But it's more importantly that you watch the videos because I'll comment on them from time to time. Be safe. Be kind. Paulides out.